cleaning, and then yeah, it's just sometimes it's just random.
I've been using Google more than, I mean, I have them all, right? Like phone use, I use Siri, right?
Yeah,
My office, I use Alexa, but my home, I use Google.
yeah,
And I use them all for different things. Like
yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
I keep the Alexa in my office
Yes.
because I it's connected to my Nest, and when I get a package from
Yeah.
Amazon, like it pops up. It tells me um, package has arrived.
Yep.
I use Google as my alarm clock, and I use Siri for everything else, right? Like
Yep.
day to day, right? But
Yeah. No, I have. I'm a Google fan, so it's a Google Assistant.
fair enough.
Um, Siri will be Haley's phone.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So it's May the 5th, Mother's Day.
May the 7th, buddy.
Is it May the? Oh, geez, it's the fifth month. It's the fifth month, May the 7th.
You're recovering.
That's why we were off last week, because I'm still recovering a week after, right? No, it's damaging, but no, it's been 2 weeks kennelled.
Yes.
Welcome
Time flies.
welcome to May.
Yes.
And tomorrow's Mother's Day. It's
Yes.
we're two dads here talking about typically finance, personal finance, two dads, but we rarely talk about women in our life and our mothers. I guess we have Kendall, you and I have at least two things in common. We both have moms, and we both have wives who are mothers.
Yes.
So that's our topic of the day.
Yeah, no, I think when you first broached the topic, yeah, I was like, this is perfect. I was like, yeah, Mother's Day is tomorrow. That was definitely top of mind this week. For me, I actually just had a Mother's Day lunch with my mom this afternoon with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're doing something. I was supposed to do personal training tomorrow for my half marathon training, but then I realized, oh wait, it's Mother's Day tomorrow, and I was like, I totally forgot. Right?
It just sneaks up on you, right?
Yeah, I know. And then Haley was like okay with it. She forgot too, and then until midway through this week, and she's like, I was like, oh, what do you want to do for Mother's Day? She's like, well, you have like personal training. We're gonna do anything. And I was like, well, I can postpone it. Like that's Mother's Day is important. Like just but you have to want to celebrate, right? Maybe you want it off. I don't know what you want, right? She said, no, I'll take it off. I was like, okay. So I pushed that over a week, and yeah, we're debating. And she's getting better at it. Usually she'll like tell me kind of like the date of what she wants, and the stuff she wants is like all booked, like the high teas, the spas, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, it's just
my wife is easier actually. Her birthday last year,
yeah,
I had to get her beef fried noodles.
Okay.
I had to get her Korean fried chicken.
Yeah.
And I had to get her Singaporean Hainan chicken.
Okay.
And that was it. That was her birthday last year.
Wow.
And I anticipate. I mean, I have no instructions for tomorrow, right? But I imagine it's going to be. Yeah, it's Mother's Day
for you.
Well, yeah. My wife's first Mother's Day.
For your wife. Yeah, for your wife. You're celebrating, with your wife as Mother's Day.
And my mom actually didn't want anything. I asked her, it's like, what do you want to do for Mother's Day? Every year I ask her, and she's like, just come on over and whatever, we'll have a meal or something, but it's never anything special, right?
Yes.
I kind of feel like a jerk. I've never bought my mom flowers for probably like the last 10 years. But no, she doesn't want it either.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's like my mom's the same. She's super practical. She's always like, oh, don't waste money on flowers. Like, do something else, right? And so I grew up with thinking, okay, like, yeah, let's do something more practical. And then Haley's kind of the same too, where she's like, yeah, don't get me flowers, like do something else more worthwhile. But then she would also out of the blue be like, I wish I had flowers, and I'm like, okay.
So, it's always after the fact, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's like, no, it's the typical thing. They tell you they want nothing, but obviously they want something, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But to put a spin on it, I mean, our channel is personal finance at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
I would nominate that it was I would give credit to my mom to she's the one who taught me about personal finance, right? Albeit, I'll give her some credit. she wasn't the greatest. Okay, but and I say not the greatest because she's no. My mom is the very risk adverse type, right?
Mhm.
For first 25 years of my life, I was invested in nothing but government bonds. I was getting government bonds at 2%, 1%, half a percent, right, all the way up until I was about, I'm gonna say 20. I think actually 23, 24, 25. She had invested on my behalf growing up, right?
Mhm.
And I wasn't, no, I didn't have access to that money. It was basically, this is the gift you get when you become an adult.
Mhm.
And my mom stashed that money away from me, and it was a significant chunk as to how I ended up getting my first condo. I mean, it wasn't my entire condo, obviously.
Mhm. Mhm.
Real estate is and was almost always expensive in the city, right? But
Yeah.
my mom basically taught me, you know, save your money, right? No, work hard, save your money. Don't spend your money. Don't spend your money on stupid things, right?
Yeah.
So no, kudos to my mom for teaching me basically, how to how to manage my money, right? Because in this day and age, it's hard to manage money,
Yes.
right? There's so
Yes.
many distractions in this world in spending your money, right?
Yeah.
Marketing has developed to a sense of purpose where it's formulated to take your money from you.
Yep. Yep.
Right, but
With
kudos.
targeted ads and
Yeah, but
all that.
kudos to my mom to teach me about personal finance. At the end of the day, she was the underlying foundation, um, and I am who I am today partly because of her. I would say I'm not gonna give her 100%. I give her maybe like 68%.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I echo those comments. I think similarly, my mom, if I were to take kind of summarize kind of what you said, the only thing I would add is, she taught me kind of the difference between needs and wants, and always kind of made me wait and for things and save your money for this, like you kind of mentioned earlier. It
Sure.
was never oh, you want this, well, I'll give it to you. There was never spoilage in that sense. It was always like earn it, and yeah, like you have to save for it. You don't get it right away. You set a goal, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna play devil's advocate and what damage it has also done to me.
Oh, really?
Which yes,
Sure.
which I think, so because of this frugal mentality and like don't spend. Yes, I've saved a lot of money, but I've also given up a lot of experiences as a result of it.
I understand
And
that. Sure.
the most recent example is how I had to unlearn saving, so to speak, when like we went through COVID.
Okay.
And so the example would be like, I was, such a saver that it's like, okay, like my bank account was kind of running low, but all my savings were in like TFSAs and
Sure.
RSPs and stuff
Like
like
your
that.
operating bank account was
Yeah,
running low.
our
Okay.
operating bank account
Yeah.
was like, getting close to zero, right? It
Yeah.
was kind of like, okay, I'm paying my mortgage and stuff. And I'm like,
Mhm.
here frantically saying like, okay, what do I do with like, how do I do this? And I don't know if I brought this story up here, but I always tell either my clients or my friends, like my pastor who was counseling me at the time,
Mhm.
pretty much became my financial planner. And it was very
Yeah.
humbling experience, right?
Oh.
It's like, okay, I know he's very good
No, it's
at
good. It's good to have some to bounce your finances off somebody, right? Because
Yes,
we all
yes,
have our bias at the end of the day,
yep,
right? And it
yep,
doesn't matter if it's your pastor or your best friend or
yep,
anybody, right? It's
yep,
good to just get a reflection on that. So
yeah.
good for you
But
finding that person.
I would have like the last person I would have thought would have been my pastor.
Oh, you never
And
know, right? You
like
never know.
yeah, like just I'm a planner. I have a lot of friends in the industry, and God decides, no, your pastor's gonna
Yeah.
be your planner just for that one instance. And we talked about budget and stuff like that, and he's like, make a budget and stuff. I have one, and this is couple counseling, so
Mhm.
Haley's on the other side, and he's like, have you shared this budget with Haley? And I'm like, no, I haven't. She's not interested. She's like, no, it's important to share. So we're going through the
Yeah.
finances and stuff.
Mhm.
And then of course, like it was like negative cash flow, right, at
Sure.
that time. And then I'm like, see, this is why I'm panicking. I'm like, negative
Mhm.
cash flow. Like, I'm gonna have to
You're
start
bleeding
borrowing.
every day.
I'm
You're bleeding every month,
day.
basically.
Yeah. and then he started asking me about savings and stuff, and I, showed him my TFSA account, and he's like, "Oh, you have more money than me, right?" It's like, and you make more money than I do, and I was like,
Sure.
"Oh, really?" I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Oh, interesting." And then he's like, "Kendall, you have all these savings." I think at that time it was like probably like, yeah, $50,000, $60,000.
Sure.
And I just didn't touch it because it was like, you're not supposed to touch your savings.
Yeah,
It's
your
like,
registered accounts, it's a big no to touch them, basically.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
that's what
for,
we're taught.
yeah, and it's an emergency only, right?
Yeah.
And then this is the key moment. My pastor's like, "We're in a pandemic. Don't you think we're in an emergency? Don't you think it's okay to tap into those savings because, like all these things are happening and, it's okay now, right?"
Yeah.
And I had to get that reassurance to be like, "Oh yeah, it's okay to spend money."
Yeah.
And that's the point I want to bring up is like, yes, I have the savings. I ended up being very frugal and not, waste money, and, thank you in terms of, I'm not in any bad debt. Like I have a mortgage and all that.
Yeah. Good debt.
Good debt. Yeah. And I have been taught all that. But again, the flip side is like, I became cheap, right? Like I didn't know how to enjoy life. I didn't know how to, really spend the money, and get value for it. Like I'll
Sure.
go to like, dollar store, for something, but it's, it's bad quality versus, maybe investing in something that's, yeah, it's not for the name brand, but for the quality of it, that, at the end of the day, yeah, like a cutting board costing you $2 versus a cutting board that might be $50. Well, guess what? The $50 cutting board may, not saying always, but may have a longer life shelf than a $2, cancerous.
I go to Winners.
Winners though, I go to Winners too. Winners has good quality stuff for cheap.
Oh, I was talking specifically cutting boards. I went to Winners.
But still, Winners is like a great, like, I don't know why people like, frown upon Winners. I think it's the best place to shop. Like, hands down.
I'd say Costco. No, my number one's Costco. Yeah, but that's my opinion, right? Do you share, like nowadays, and maybe even before? Do you share your finances with your wife? Completely transparent about it.
Completely transparent, but again, she always, like, even to a couple of days ago, when we were talking to a realtor, right? She's like, "Oh, I'm like falling asleep," right? I'm like, "Oh, I'm tired," and I'm like, "Man." I'm like, no, we gotta get you interested, because it's like, what happens if, knock on wood, something were to happen to me? I mean, you're gonna have to raise going up. I'm like, I named the executor I named is one of my best friends. He's like a financial planner himself. So I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I already have a card and stuff. And he does the same, right? He's like, yeah, if I were to, something were to happen to me, I already told my, girlfriend that, to come talk to you. So we're each other's like kind of backup. But at the same time, I do want her to know about like finances. I know it's boring, and I'm trying to make it as fun as possible. But I don't know. Like she's just like, "Oh, well, you're the planner. Like you go take care of it." I'm like, "I know, but like, I want you to be involved." And because sometimes she'll freak out and think we have no money, but I'm like, no, we have this budget, right? We have this thing. It's okay to spend.
I always tell my wife that we're poor. I always tell her poor. I always tell her like I'm broke, especially these days, this month when the market's crashing. I basically say it's like, "Oh, we lost $1,000 today on Shopify, right? we can't eat meat today, right? Well, we're gonna eat meat. We're gonna be eating that Costco rotisserie chicken for like days on end, basically, right?" No, but I'm fully transparent with with my wife in terms of our finances and everything. She doesn't like money. That's one of the things. Like she does not like talking about money. I don't know. I never really asked her. No, I know the fact she doesn't like talking about money. Maybe the saying money is a root of evil. It's like one of the roots of evil.
It's love of money. I gotta correct you. Like people just drop the love of, and they think money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money. Like that's key, right? That's
I love money.
Key. It's So that's the root of all evil, right?
But we talked about this addiction and everything. Right, but I'm pretty transparent with her, right? And I mention it, even though like I bring up the topic virtually, at least 3 or 4 times a week as to how we're doing, right? And I can see her eyes rolling rolling to the back of your head every time I mention it. But we got our wills done last year.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
we got them redone
Yeah.
in anticipation of the birth of our son, and we got them the will basically done without our son's name in it, but to the extent that he was going to be born relatively soon, that it was
Right.
worded in that way. But I also left a kind of like an envelope of instructions.
Yep.
Should I die, like this
Yeah.
is what you need to do, right?
Right.
Basically, you need to liquidate everything. You got to dump it into these particular ETFs, and you live on the
Yeah.
cash flow. And I think you're going to be set for life if you do this, right? The insurance will come in. They'll pay off the mortgage and whatnot. And all you have to do is pay the strata and the property taxes, and you're good, right?
Yeah.
You should be able to live forever on it, and that means.
Yeah.
Right? But it's an unofficial document set of instructions that this is kind of what you need to do.
Right.
And I think it's worth the conversation to reassure, right, your partner at the end of the day to what's going to happen in the worst case scenario, because we never really think about it, right? We all think we're going to live forever type of thing.
Yes.
We'll think we plan to live until our 80s, and life can be cut short, right?
Yes.
And I mean, we don't expect to die tomorrow, but it could very well happen, right?
I mean, I think COVID kind of brought that to a lot of people's attention, right? That we don't live forever. A pandemic can come at any time. And I think, after that, I mean, in my industry, I think a lot of people got their ducks in order, right?
But what's very important, what else is important other than a will is the power of attorney.
Yes.
Right. And I think a lot of people skip over that because, it's not mentioned in mainstream media. It's, half the time, or even maybe a third of the time. I'm making up statistics. Everyone makes up statistics, right? The mainstream media basically says, make sure you don't die without a will, right?
Right.
But no one ever mentions power of attorney, right?
Yeah.
Where you get maimed, or, if you get sick to the extent where, you're alive but disabled, right?
Yes.
You need to have that power of attorney document, because, you could not be you may not be in a position to, sign on your behalf, right? To allow your power of attorney to take over for you, right?
Yeah.
But no, one of the big keys I learned recently is to have both documents in place.
That, and also the healthcare agreement should something happen where you need your family member to kind of make that decision whether or not to pull the plug and stuff like that, right? Those things, whether to go to a retirement like a care home or not, those things are important, and people, it just slips through a crack. But speaking about like power of attorneys, though, it's like I have multiple stories where it's like how effective is this document until I guess you're incapable, because I go to the banks with it. I have one, like my mom did one for me when she went over to Hong Kong, and then my wife and we both have a power of attorney on each other. But again, the bank, I mean, I worked at the bank, and now I'm outside the bank, and it's changed so much since I've worked there. Before it was kind of like power of attorney. Even at the banks, you can kind of sign documents very easy, but now I think they've and probably because some people have abused it, they now actually I think they have to send it to like the legal department for them to review.
They do.
On the account, and but then it's so limiting. It's like it depends on the bank, right? Like TD's been pretty good, and I think maybe because I know some people there, so it's kind of like, okay, I okay, get it, family member, sure. But at RBC, it's a pain.
Funny that you mentioned it. So that was what I encountered recently was RBC. That it was a pain to. And it's, to be honest, in the situation that I'm aware of, it's still up in the air. They're not accepting the POA document.
Yeah, like literally, my mom was like in Hong Kong. I was just playing with them because my dad obviously can go and get the bank draft for his house and stuff. But I was like, okay, what happens if, right? Like he's busy in a meeting. He is always busy, and I'm like, he just needs me to go do get a draft done up.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, well, we need your mom to write a letter. To say that, she authorizes you on this account. And I'm like, okay, she's in Hong Kong right now.
Yeah.
That's why I got this power of attorney done. You can call my notary who did this power of attorney that, I'm acting in, like, I'm not taking the money to me. I'm writing it out to, this, in trust company. So literally I'm just doing her job. And that's what, like, it's in her favor. So, no, we cannot do that. We need a letter. And I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
And then like, how about taking cash out? Same thing. We need something in writing saying that like she authorized you to do this. And I'm like, then what the hell is this
And what's the purpose?
document? I
It's like,
paid
what's the purpose
300 bucks
really?
for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, the realtors are like, oh yeah, we accept this thing. You can
Mhm.
sign a deal. You can buy property.
It really depends who the recipient is,
Yes.
whoever's using it, right? And
Yeah.
like you said, it depends on the financial institution as well, right? So, some, and to be honest, it even depends on the person you hand it to, right?
Oh yes. Yes.
If you get the right representative and the right lawyer looking at it, they'll
Yeah.
sign away and you can do whatever you want, right? But
Yeah.
it's the ones who wants to do the due diligence, and it's their job at the end of the day.
Yeah. And to your point, Tangerine did that.
Sure.
Because I was trying to take money out again for the house. It's all because of the house, and they didn't like that person was new, and she didn't read that one line and thought it was like me and my dad, and no, it said and or, right? She didn't read that, and then she's like nope, and then she just like rejected it, and I'm like no, please read, right? And then and she didn't want to, and so I'm like, okay, pass me back to this other guy I was dealing with because he said it was okay. And then he reread everything. He's like, yeah, we're going to put it on the system. No problem. I think she just missed that line because I had to highlight and just like box out and say, and that's the thing too with Tangerine. And I mean, I kind of like, offhand comment to them was like, yeah, this is why, I don't like, I pay for being cheap.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I don't have to pay account fees, but yeah, now the service, I don't get any service, right? I get rejection after rejection because it's like I gotta mail this document over. I had to get a notary to stamp it, so there was a cost there. And I had to follow up, and like literally it took me like it got to the point where like I just used their limit. So I started like $50,000 was a daily limit. So I just set up like automatic withdrawals of $50,000. Because it literally took that long before they like put it on.
Yeah.
And so I gave them, I'm like, what if like, I needed the money today? He's like, well, you can pay for a bank draft. I'm like, I didn't want to do that. That's why I contacted you like, 2 months in advance. And then I had the foresight to be like, you know what, this is probably not going to go in time. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to systematically withdraw it. Right. And then, okay, this is the final picture. And then you can kind of take over. Is that when I called in and the power of attorney was finally set up, they're like, oh, I need a supervisor to approve this.
Yeah.
And the supervisor was like a 20-minute, 30-minute wait. And I'm like, okay, like seriously? I'm like, this is not worth my time. I don't want to be on hold. I mean, you've probably been on hold with CRA, which is probably
3 hours. 3 hours was my longest hold. I think it was like maybe 2 hours and 58 minutes or something, and then they finally picked up. But I was actually surprised. I took a screenshot on it. I actually posted it on my newsfeed, and but I just left it on speaker, right? I just at the end of the day.
But the music, man, it's like some kind of
it's the opera music.
Yeah, it's like oh man, like this is. It's annoying already waiting for you guys. Now I gotta listen to this other. It's not pop hits, right? It's not classical music. It's just this annoying.
It's opera.
Like, yeah, please hang up. Like
I got used to it. No, I got used to it, right? But going back to moms, it's Mother's Day tomorrow, and really, shout outs to I'm just going to do a shout out to my mom as to why she's special at the end of the day. Really, I didn't realize how difficult being a mom is until I had my own kid, right?
Yes.
My wife has done a phenomenal job so far, so kudos to her. But I'll get to my wife later because she's a new mom versus old mom. OG mom, basically. But my mom had 3 kids, right? And I don't think I've ever shared this story with you, Kenneth, or even I don't think a lot of people who, if anyone, even watches these videos. I had a really useless dad. I just throw that out there. At least in my opinion, I thought he was a useless dad, right? And he was a great role model for me because to me it was become everything he is not. Right? Do the opposite. Whatever my dad did, just don't do what my dad did, and that's the dad I wanted to be, basically, right?
Yeah.
And with my mom in that situation with my dad, and for my dad was around for 30, 29 years of my life. He first of all, my dad had me when he was 50. So he was quite old.
50.
50.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember, I'm the last of my brothers. My oldest brother's 9 years older than me.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
My dad got married late. So
Yeah.
my dad had my brother when he was 40 or 41. Must be 41 because my dad was 50 when he had me.
Right.
And maybe this is maybe a Father's Day conversation about my dad. But my dad being his age, right? And he had health conditions as well, right?
Yeah.
His age and his health conditions. He wasn't really, that dad. He wasn't really the fatherly figure, right? And so, I was mainly raised by my mom, right? And my mom had, 3 kids and everything, right?
Yeah.
And, she worked like 14 hours a day, making pennies on the dollar type of job, right? She was she had a business, right? We ran a farm in Richmond, right? And, farms are, you're working 8 months of the year, 12, 14 hours a day, and then you have no income for 4 months of the year because of wintertime, right?
Yeah.
And so, she raised 3 kids and, she always would say, I did the best I could for you 3, right? And I never believed her, right? Like, I always believed you, like we had nothing. We had nothing growing up. It's like, you could have done a little bit better, right? And that was always my attitude, probably for the first, I'm going to say 25, 30 years of my life, right? I'm 30. I keep forgetting how old I am. I'm 37 this year.
Yeah.
And, I always believed, right? Like my mom could have done a better job, but, like what my wife is going through right now with 1 kid, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of work, right? And I told my wife, I didn't tell her. I mentioned this a few times, right? Because I said these words, like, you sure you want to have a second? Because I'm tired, right? You've gone through this before. You know how hard it is to raise 1 kid,
Yes.
and my mom raised 3 kids, right?
Yes.
And she, like, the story my mom told us, right? I was born because my middle brother said he wanted a younger brother or sister. And he was born because my oldest brother wanted a younger brother or sister. There are no other siblings after me because I didn't want another younger sister, right? Apparently, that's the story, right? And so my mom raised 3 kids, right? And I had mentioned, how long has it been so far? 27 minutes. I mentioned about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
My mom saved a lot.
Yeah.
Her savings rate was probably, first of all, okay, so my mom she didn't have an official mortgage, right? She took a loan from her bank of mom, or my bank of grandma, right?
Yeah.
And so she paid her mom back through basically a family loan, right? To pay for her house and everything, right? And so after, I have no idea when that was done, right? But even when that was done, my mom continued to save money, right? To one day for her own retirement and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was that savers mentality that really ingrained into, I'm going to say, all 3 of her kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
To have that. I'm not going to call it frugal, right?
Yeah.
I am. I think I'm frugal, right? Some people say I'm not. Some people say I'm too frugal. I really don't know where I am on the spending
Frugality scale.
I was gonna call it on the spending spectrum, but
Okay.
I don't know. But I save today, Kendall, about 60% of my take-home pay, which is apparently quite high.
It is.
But that's why I want to retire in 10 years. Like, I'm done with this, right? But that mentality came from my mom, right? The save first, right? One thing she didn't teach us, and I had this conversation with her 2 or 3 days ago, right?
Yeah.
She taught us how to save, put away money. She never taught us how to invest money, Okay, there's
Right.
there's the lady who invested in 1% bonds, right?
Yeah.
And in her, in her mindset, bonds are great because bonds, back in the 80s, early 80s and 70s, bonds are paying like 18%, right? It
Yeah.
was the thing to invest in because inflation was like 10 to 18% back then, right? So I mean, that was the thing to do, right? To
Yeah.
put your money in basically term deposits, bonds at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? But that didn't change in her mind that I can guarantee myself 18% or I can guarantee myself 1% 25 years later, right? So she never taught us how to invest, right?
Right.
But the other thing she never taught us is how to make more money,
Okay.
right? She taught us, go to school, study
Yes.
hard, get a
Yes.
good job,
Yep.
sit at that job for the next 40 years of your life and
Okay, your pension.
and retire and get a pension to retire. And if you can, get a government job.
Yes.
Right. At one time,
Iron
my mom was joking and basically said I should be a gigolo because like apparently they pay really well, right? But and in all seriousness, like my mom basically said, get off the farm, right?
Yeah.
Get a nice air conditioned job because it's hard to work in the hot sun and everything. Get an
Right.
air conditioned job in an office and basically spend
Mhm.
40 years there, right?
Right.
And basically work a 9 to 5, right?
Right.
So my mom really never taught us how to make more money. It was about saving pennies to make
Mhm.
dollars, right?
Yes.
And my argument with her was, why save pennies to make a dollar when I can go out and make another $5 somewhere else, doing something else,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so no, I really do. No, she gave me one of the pieces for personal finance,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
She didn't give me the other 2 pieces.
Yeah.
I had to figure those out on my own, and I was lucky
Right.
to work in accounting because I got to see how a lot of other people did things,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I got to see the doctors, I got to see the lawyers who made 6 to mid 6 figures. By mid 6,
Yeah.
I mean like $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, and
Yeah.
see what they did with their money, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty important. So, and then
Yeah, and to that point, I think, yeah. So similarly, I think in my industry, the type of clients I got to work with, and most lately the with kind of the millionaire clients, it's like that change in mentality where you kind of and you learn it in school too, and I just got to see it in real life, which was kind
learn
of
it
like
in school.
yeah. Well, I learned about like economies of scale, right?
Sure. Okay. Fine.
Yeah. Well, right. The concept of kind of like, okay, like specialize, right? Like, hey, everyone in the economy, pick your specialization and then outsource things that you're not specializing in.
Oh,
Right?
I thought by economies of scale, I thought you meant like buying bulk from Costco.
That too, but this concept of kind of outsourcing work that you're not good at, right? And this, case in point is like cleaners, right? Like, Kaylee wanted like my wife wanted cleaners.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, like save money, right? Again, save money. My mom's like, no, I had to kind of clean, and so I was like, no, like, Haley, you clean or I'll clean. We'll clean.
Yeah.
But then we did an analysis, and we're like, wait a minute, like. So do we value our time at, it was like $40 an hour, right? I was like, do we value our time at $40 an hour or do we value it more? And then we started saying like, no, we value our time more than the $40 an hour that we're paying a cleaner. I think we can generate more value. And then we started kind of, I mean, that's not why we started a cleaner. We started a cleaner because there was less fights in the family, to be completely honest.
Sure.
It was like, she got her way, and then, she felt less tired. And so, we were happy.
You have a cleaner today, like now?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Once a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one thing my parents would always be like, why would you hire a cleaner? Like, that's a waste of money, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I was kind of like, no, it's the best investment ever because it now frees up, my time and Haley's time to.
Sure.
I mean, we still have to clean to kind of keep.
That's the everyday stuff, like wipe
everyday
down the counter when spills and whatnot.
But like a deep clean, we get one person, a team of them to come once a month to do it. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is like, why didn't I do this earlier?
Sure.
And then there was this concept of like, okay. And really what cemented it for me was, again, talking about will. So I went to see a lawyer for my will because I wanted to, do more. I mean, I was always depending, again, being cheap and value. It's like, okay, do I go to notary and just kind of get it done? Or, why would I spend more money with the lawyer? And I was interviewing people and kind of got the both things, and I was like, no, I want a trust account for my son. I want to kind of write instructions, and one day I do want to have a company and all that. So it just makes more sense to start with a lawyer so we can kind of build out that thing. Whereas notary is just kind of the simple kind of like split half and half and that's it. I'm like, no, I'm not the cookie cutter type. I'm gonna go and, you know, kind of have a recipe, you know, so to speak, right?
I know a really good notary though. You know him
Yeah,
too.
me too. Me too. Yeah. And I talked to him. Right? I talked to him, and he tried to be like, you know, I can do it, and I'm like, no, I know you can, but I'm like, just let me go, you know, to this, because he's more, you know, on the real estate transaction. All my real estate stuff goes to him, and he does a fantastic job. I send my people, and I, you know, all my family stuff goes to him. Like, kudos to him. But yeah, and she was like, yeah, I charged, like, I think it was $5.70 an hour. And I think she was the first person to give me like, oh, I've never valued my time like that, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, then the cheap kennel came, I was like, oh my goodness, are you worth $5.70? And then just like consultation and stuff like that, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, oh, she knows her stuff.
Sure.
And I'm like, this is why she charges her time this way. And that birthed the whole concept of what I'm doing right now, like fee for service. I'm like, yeah, what do I actually value my time at? And basically, like, you know, if I value my time at, you know, at this rate, like right now, I value at 125, you know, based on what I charge and stuff and my experience and stuff like that. So I'm like, anything that's kind of like, if it takes me an hour and, you know, it costs me less than a 125, to me now it's deemed okay. You know what? I'm going to spend it because I can go and use that same hour and earn 125, right? And so and also to your point about mom teaching about kind of this kind of stuff, this was never taught to me, right?
No,
About,
it wasn't.
like, you know, getting more, you know,
you
more
do it
money
yourself.
stuff.
You do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
Yeah.
Save the money, cut the cost, coupon, right? Wait for the deal. Wait for this. It was never about how do you create more money, generate. And the funniest thing is, you know, I came from an
I see where you're going with this. I see where you're going. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like okay, like, and you know, you talk about having a useless dad. Well, I think so too, right? Over here,
Sure.
my dad, you know, thanks to him, you know, he drove us around and all that, but I never had a fatherly figure in my life.
Yeah.
You know, and again,
Sure.
Kudos to the mom, 100% kudos to my mom, right?
Sure.
Like, she basically had to be, you know, the one that, you know, cooked the meals, you know, changed my diaper, and similar to you, it was kind of like, until, like, you know, the whole process of raising, you know, my son up, you know, it was kind of like, and the fact that COVID happened, because if it wasn't for COVID, I would have been probably just like my dad, just, you know, earn the big bucks and come back and, you know, and expect my wife to do everything and try to thank her, but don't understand really the whole process. But working from home has allowed me, and I think similar to you, to appreciate, wow, the woman in our lives, right? The key, mothers.
Yeah.
The sacrifices they make, and like the amount of stuff they have to do. And you know, and now we're more kind of on the try to be more equal, right?
Yeah.
But back then, this was never talked about.
20 years ago, it went unnoticed.
Yeah, it was expected that the woman cook, clean, did everything. Like, it was like, you know, expected.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, she had to do, like, and I was trying to search up while you were talking, I couldn't find it.
Sure.
But, you know, the value of mothers, right? Like, stay-at-home moms, if you were to put a dollar value, it was like, you know, something like over $100,000 worth of value of work they do.
Sure.
They cook, they clean, like, you know, they're a cook, right?
Yeah.
They're like, you know, a cleaner. They're like a laundromat. They do all these things, right? A caretaker.
Well, it's like basically it's hiring a nanny for 16 hours a day.
And they work around the clock, right? If they breastfeed, and even
365 days, 16 hours at what? $25 to $40 an hour.
Yeah. So there you go, right?
Yeah.
You do the math there real quick, and it's like, oh my goodness.
But I mean, 20, 30 years ago, these things weren't measured or valued at all, right? Like you said, it's the expectation that, you know, the woman in the family took care of these things, right? And you know, the man, you know, historically always went out and, you know, made the bread and came home basically.
And we had it so easy, right?
Well, we had it easy. Well,
right?
now,
we just had to,
though, like,
I mean,
I'm quite involved as a, you know, as a parent, I'm going to say, right?
But I think we're the exception. I think there's more men that are being involved, but
nowadays, in the 2020s, yeah.
But I still think there's a lot that are just sitting back and just be like, no, this is an expectation, right?
I mean, certainly there are some, right? We can't say, and no, we live on the West Coast as well, right? We're quite liberal, you know, on the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
Where, you know, I can't say we all you know, male parents get involved, right?
Yeah.
But you know, you and I, right, in at least this conversation, are involved, and I think we see, you know, how much our wives at this point, no, our wives, new mothers, right,
Yeah.
are basically sacrificing at this time that we never seen our moms
Yeah.
sacrifice. Because as us as kids,
Yeah.
it was expected, right?
Yes.
Mom, when's dinner, right? It's
Yeah.
expected. Mom,
Yeah.
I need my black pants because I got a rehearsal at school and they said everyone has to wear black pants. Where are my black pants, Mom? Right? And back then it was it's the expectation, right?
Yeah.
That those things were provided. But I see my wife going through the crap she's going through now over the last 2.5 months with our newborn, like the sacrifices she's making. And I can say the same thing that your wife, the sacrifice she made raising your son as well. It's it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
The mental, emotional, physical suffering that they go through. We too as well, but I would say not to the same extent.
No.
Right? If my excuse is, right, I work 16 hours a day. I'm tired, right?
Yeah.
And there will be times like I will try every night to do the 1 o'clock. Like we do 1, 4, 7, 10 feedings, right?
7, yeah.
And I will try to do 1 a.m. feeding, right?
Yeah.
Every night. I will try, right? Because I usually go to bed at like 2 a.m., right? There's no excuse for me not to do it, right? But, and she will, for the most part, my wife will cover 4 a.m. feeding, right? Kudos for her. That is a shitty time to cover, right?
Yes.
And I truly do try to cover 7 a.m.
Yes.
But there will be times I basically just sleep right through it, right?
Right.
I am just too tired. And my wife has to cover, right? Because the baby will be crying and screaming and I will not hear it. Right? And that is a sacrifice that she basically has to make. Like she gets 1.5 hour naps, maybe 3 or 4 times, maybe 3 times a day, right? Like she's probably sleeping 3, 4, maybe 5 hours a day in total, right? Raising this kid at this point, right?
Yeah.
The toll that my wife, a new mom, basically incurs at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like the amount of work, and I think that's why this episode is dedicated to the moms out there, and us dads appreciate it. At least 2 dads, and hopefully, the husbands and the husband, your husbands are going to do something nice for you. And I don't know, maybe later on in the episode we can kind of share some ideas for those last minute husbands, because I know they're out there. And I don't know, maybe I mean, like we always do current events and stuff like that. I mean, this might be a good time where I'm just gonna share like this article.
Go for it.
From Motherly, right? Like these 5 things that this dad kind of was like, 5 things he would tell his pre-children self on how to support his future wife while she becomes a mother.
You can share it if you want.
I'm sharing my screen, so I think they're seeing
it.
So, yeah. Maybe I should just share screen. You mean? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Perfect. There we go.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So number 1. This is a Facebook post that this I think this guy's called Ted Gonder. I'm now 29 and have 3 kids with my wife who carried and birthed them all like a pro.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I would tell my childless 24-year-old self about how to be supportive.
Okay, so 5-year difference here. Okay, so 24 to 29. Okay,
that's right. During the becoming parents phase. Okay, so number 1, wifey carried baby in her belly for 9 months. So you carry baby on your belly for 9 months every chance you get. Not only does it help her recover, but it bonds you to your kid more than imaginable.
Yeah, that's true.
Number 2.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to talk point by point, or should I read everything and then we talk about it?
Yeah, let's talk point by point. Otherwise we'll get lost in the weeds. My wife carried for 7 months, so we had a preemie. 33 weeks, 33 and 2. But it was a funny story. I came home with fried chicken. She was in labor on the way home. She was in labor all day, basically, but she didn't know she was in labor because it was 33 weeks. Right. And I came home with fried chicken. and I had to pick between driving her to the hospital or eating fried chicken. She actually asked me, "Aren't I going to eat dinner first?" And I said, "No, we're going to the hospital." Right? But no, carrying it on your belly, for every chance you can get. That tummy time is so important
Yes.
to raise your kid, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, for those out there who don't know, if they, for you probably know, Kennel, like that tummy time or even chest time, right?
Yes.
Your kid will actually enjoy chest time as opposed to being on their backside.
Yes.
Because they got poop pains. And they have less poop pains when they're on their stomach side. At least for my kid anyways. I think it's the general consensus from what I read on the internet. The poop pains are less when they're front side on you, right? And it's more enjoyable as well. It's just that you can't really do anything when they're on you.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
Yeah, and that's the one stage that I really miss. And like, had I read this article, I guess earlier, I quit 100%. It's like, when I did have those tummy times, it was, I mean, and back then I was more kind of like, I gotta work. So
Sure.
I wasn't as, kind of calm and kind of like, slow down and kind of be more of a human being. I was more of a human doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for the new dads, like this, this is time. These are the moments that like my clients talk about. Is like, I wish I did this. Like this is one of them that I think it would be top, because it was top for me. It's like, man, and this is kind of this kind of makes me want to have like a second one, which hopefully it comes to pass. And Brandon, I get you. The phase that you're in, me and my wife were the same. We're like, what? We're thinking of two, and we're like, no, that's it. One is enough. And
one and done.
Yeah. And it wasn't until really recently, as our son has really kind of matured, if I can put it that way.
He's 3 now, right? Your son?
Yeah, he's turning 3 in about 4 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he's at this like super fun, and my friends warned me. He's like, you'll get to the point where like you'll want another one. I'm like, you're crazy. I'm like, I don't know. You don't know like what I'm going through. He's like, no, I know exactly what you're going through. He's like, I know you, Kendall. Like you're gonna have a second. I'm like, no, you're crazy. I'm like, I thought so too, but I'm like, this stage is horrible, right? It's horrible. But yeah, we're in this like reflective moment now where we're like, wasn't that bad. We missed this, right?
Yeah, a lot of people tell me that actually.
Yeah, and this is the stage, like, if I have a quote unquote do-over, like, that next baby is gonna be always on like my chest, and it's almost like, you know what, like I'm gonna have it for 9 months. And just lay on me, right?
Yeah.
Lay on me.
They're really content when they do, and I wouldn't say it feels good. I have no chest at all. I'm pretty like I have Asian flat chest syndrome as a guy, and like
dad bod, man. You have I don't know. You have a belly. I have a belly. So
no, I don't have a belly.
Okay, well, I do, and so there's that.
Like I've been consistent 152 pounds for the last 2 years now, because I haven't been going out to eat, right? But no, my chest is basically, it's like sleeping on a rock. Like I have no pecs at all, and like the difference between my kid sleeping on my wife and my kid sleeping on me, 10 times over, he'll prefer to sleep on my wife, right?
Yeah.
Due to the cushiness, right? But spending time with your kid with that chest time, tummy time, it's you only get that for so long before that time expires. I agree with point 1.
Yeah, I lay him on my final points before we go to point 2. I try to lay my son on my chest. Now he's like my whole body length, and I'm like, okay. And so now what I do is like I can still put him on my shoulders, right? And so I maximize that time, because I'm like, there will become a time when he's like either like, no, daddy, no more, or he's just too heavy, right? He's almost probably he's 30 plus pounds.
Sure.
And Haley's like, oh, I can't carry him. I wish I can.
He's too big now, right? Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is why I worked out. I'm like, I want to just, until 50 or whatever this pounds he may be, I want to just carry, because I'm like, there will be a moment when it's just like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
So number 2, wifey is breastfeeding, and while beautiful and fulfilling for her, is exhausting.
I agree.
So you change every diaper you can. From diaper number 1 onward, you will get over the grossness fast, and you will prevent imbalances and resentment in the relationship. In fact, when all your wife's friends are complaining about how absent and unsupportive their husbands are, your wife will be bragging about you.
I agree. I mean, I don't change them all, right? I
Yeah.
change the ones that I can.
Yes.
Okay, let's just go from the beginning. It's exhausting. So our kid doesn't breastfeed. He only bottles, right? And he bottles because he was born preemie, right?
Yes.
And he was in NICU, neonatal intensive care,
Yep.
for 3 to 4 weeks. And so when he's in there, he's getting bottle fed. Right?
Right.
So he only knows how to bottle feed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, it's not as easy for my wife to directly feed, right?
Yes.
She has to pump first.
Yes.
And then basically put it in a bottle, feed him,
Yep.
because that's the only way he'll eat, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically double the time, right?
Yes.
That's what makes it exhausting for her. I don't feel it at all, right? Because all I have to do is take the bottle, heat it up, feed, right? And that's something, if I was not a father, I wouldn't understand that, right? Change every diaper you can. I try to. Right.
Yeah.
We change, before feed 8 times a day, roughly, if not more. Right. It's not gross. It is gross, but like they said, you'll get over it quite quickly. I don't know, Ken. I'll ask you the question. Like, how involved were you in this number 2?
Super involved. I mean, I wouldn't say change every diaper. I didn't change every diaper, similar to you.
Sure.
But I was involved as much as I possibly can, and that involved we had I think a 2, a 5, and a 8 a.m. feed. So
2, 5, 8, 11. 2, 5, 8, 11. Yeah.
Yeah, every 3 hours, right? So I did the 2 and the 5.
That's hard.
But the thing was, and I was working full time as well. What angered me at the time was I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. But then she will still get up, right? I'm like, I just want you to rest, right? I'm doing this so that you can rest. Why are you up? And she's like, well, because my boob hurts if I don't.
Yeah. That's
milk, right.
Yeah.
And so she did breastfeed, and I was like, okay, I was kind of like, okay, if it's so hard, it's okay, right? I was like, just bottle feed, it's fine. But my wife just has this you call it stubbornness, you call it persistence. She just really wanted the best for our son, and so no matter how hard it was, she would do it. I didn't understand at the time, right? I was just kind of like, okay, I'm doing this for you so you can rest, so that you have the energy in the morning. You're doing the opposite of we're both now tired. We're both running to the ground. And I'm like, you don't even need me to wake up. You just do this all on your own, kind of thing,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think this point about every diaper, I think really what we want to take from it is just be support,
just be there,
available.
Be around.
Just be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that Haley kind of told me every time was even that water you brought me, at nighttime, or that diaper you can grab me, every little thing that you think that I at that point I didn't think it mattered. She told me, no, it mattered 100%, right? It was the smallest action, but it was big brownie points every time I did something like that. And so I think, for point number 2 is just be supportive, right? Just look for things to do, and don't just I was bad at this. I was always Haley, tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do, right? And
sure.
she's like, just go figure it out, right? I'm like, I don't know how to figure it out.
No, I'm just as guilty. I'm just as guilty. Quite frankly, I know how to do once I'm shown the first time.
Exactly.
But I would never be able to go figure it out myself the first time. That's maybe my fault. And I rely on my wife, to explain it to me, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure if she taught me. Did she? The nurse in the neonatal unit taught me how to change the diaper.
Right.
My wife taught me how to change the diaper properly. Because every time I was changing the diaper, it was leaking.
Oh,
right?
You didn't fluff it out?
No, I didn't fluff it out. That's the thing. So my wife is like, do you fluff it out? I was like, what do you mean fluff it out? Right? So, now, once I'm showing, once I do things the right way, once I get get it, I got it, right? But I'll never figure it out the first time. And that's me being, I wouldn't call myself unsupportive, but ignorant maybe. Like I would call I think I'd call myself ignorant.
And to the new moms and wives out there, just tell the husbands and the dads, like, just tell us, please, like, we don't know, right? Like, if we know you, we want to be supportive, we're just, like, I guess, for lack of a better word, we're just dumb. We try to Google, we try to figure it out, but it's just we don't know.
My problem is, though, and I'm not going to use this as a defense, right? I'm the youngest grandchild in my family, and so there was no one after me to take, like, I didn't need to take care of anyone. In fact, everyone took care of me.
Right.
So if anyone spoiled in my family, everyone would call me spoiled. I don't think, my opinion, I don't think I was spoiled, right? I don't think I got the best.
Right.
Again, my opinion. But for me to address, like, I didn't know how to do anything because I didn't need to learn these things growing up, right? Whereas my wife, like, she took care of, friends' kids, cousins' kids, whatever. Like, she had so much experience. When I found that out, I relied on her to be the expert.
Yes.
And monkey see, monkey do. I see, I learn, and I learn from her. And that's just my situation, though, right? I can't say that all men out there should have that excuse. But that's my excuse, anyways. It's not a good excuse. Right?
I was the oldest. So the flip side of it, I was on the other chain, side of the chain.
Sure.
So I would, people will say I'm spoiled, and I think so, because I was like the only baby in my family. So, like, my grandpa, I was like, a male, and I was like the only
oldest
child.
You're the oldest
in the family for like the first 2 years.
Okay.
Before my cousin kind of came to be. So I got all the toys. I remember pictures. I don't actually remember driving it, but seeing pictures of me driving, the BMWs of the times, like those toy cars. I was like, we had a pool in the background, and all the uncles and aunts would, like, surround me and just, like, play with me. So, like, I just got all the attention in the world, because I was the only one. Similar to my son right now, right? Like, he's the only great grandchild right now. So he's I mean, minus COVID, so it's not like we had a lot of gatherings and stuff, but each kind of family gathering we have, like, everyone's playing with them, right? I mean, again, my cousin's baby is coming soon, and I mean, they're out in Victoria, so still locally, he's like the only great grandchild, so he gets all the attention and stuff. So I also was clueless, and that, I think, for me, was just, again, a lack of attentiveness, and not on purpose. I think it's just growing up, it was I was just never attention to detail, right? And my wife is always like, how come you can't read my mind? I'm like, well, I'm not a mind reader.
I'm bad. I expect my wife to read my mind. But I'm very bad at it, like, to the extent, like, I'm glad my wife forgives me for a lot of this, but I'm very passive aggressive. And I have the expectation that she can read my mind. And when she can't, like, I get upset, right?
Yes.
But that's completely my fault.
Right.
And, she's forgiven me for the past 10 years. I know I need to stop it. And she even tells me, it's like, Brandon, you have to talk to me. You need to communicate, right? I recognize it. Am I improving on it? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I have to reassess, right? But I recognize I address it to be a concern, right? But
awareness is the first step to change. So good on you for catching. Because I'm guilty. I'm guilty as well, right? I've been called out many times, or called in, if that's a lack of a better term. About it, right? It's like, why are you passive aggressive? And guess who I got that from? My mom. She's super passive aggressive. So I picked up everything from her, right? Like, all the habits and stuff, because you pick up.
You
just, as a child, you just kind of, you learn monkey see, monkey do, like you just said earlier. You just, it's not like they taught you to be passive aggressive. You just kind of
you mimic, you kind of mimic their
yes,
personality, right?
yeah, yeah,
And my snarkiness came from my mom, right? My quickness came from my
yeah,
mom, right?
yeah,
My sarcasm came from my mom, right?
yeah,
Like mentally, I I think I'm more like my mom. Physically, I look like my dad.
right,
I wouldn't say identical. Like my oldest brother looks a lot like my dad, but my mental capacity is like, I would say a split image. It's not a split image,
right,
but it was highly influenced to you know who my mom, how my mom demonstrated herself,
yeah,
and I saw what she did, and
hmm,
I would say I copied most of the good pieces,
yeah,
but I've also taken the bad parts of her as well
right, yeah, 100%.
to what I think is bad.
Yeah. And then we learn to reparent ourselves as we're parents. At least
Sure.
that's what I'm learning. It's like, oh well, this, yeah, it kind of worked, but I'm like, no, actually, this there might be a better way to do it, and stuff. So, point number 3.
Point number 3. Let's keep going. There's 2 more after this.
Yeah. Make her the decaf coffee every morning, even if she leaves it cold and forgets to drink it most mornings because she falls back asleep while you're working or later taking the kids to school. She was up all night feeding the baby, so help start her day in a way that helps her reset.
My wife doesn't drink decaf. Well, my wife doesn't drink coffee.
Yeah. Tea?
She'll drink tea, right?
Juice?
My wife
Water?
drinks my wife drinks juice.
Yeah.
She's basically just flavored sugar water all day.
Yeah.
I pick on her about that, right?
Yeah.
But I understand this, right? I mean, in my situation, my wife, she doesn't work right now, right? She's raising the
Right.
baby, right?
Yeah.
She basically, put a pause on her business and everything, right? So
Mhm.
for the most part, I mean, we feed the baby. Whoever feeds the baby at 7 a.m. Whether it's me or my wife at that point, my wife will basically sleep in until 8, 9, or 10 o'clock after that, right?
Mhm.
And we're bad in the sense that once once I get up out of my side of the bed, I will put my baby on my side of the bed. Like I won't put him back in the bassinet, right?
Right.
And he will sleep in our bed, facing up, no complaints, because
Right.
it's warm. Because I got out of bed, right?
Yeah.
And he'll sleep there for 3 hours, and my wife will sleep there, until she gets up, basically.
Right. Right.
I understand this article. No, I agree with it. I think
Yeah.
I'm in a fortunate situation where we both work at home right now.
Right.
I can't say everyone else has that luxury, right?
Yeah.
And no, I agree with it. I wouldn't say. Maybe it goes back to what you were mentioning about getting Haley water in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the little things. Do anything,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Try to let her sleep, right?
Yes.
As much as she can, because the rest of the day is gonna suck.
Yep.
Right? If you have milk in the fridge, you heat it up as a guy.
Yeah.
Heat it up, feed the baby if you can. Just that extra, if they can get 3 or 4 hours continuous sleep, that helps so much
Yes.
at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's those thoughts that kind of like, if it's not coffee, like Haley's more milk tea, so it'll be milk tea for her. But it's just even little notes, I think, just kind of like, hey, acknowledgement. I think we went through a phase where we're like, hey, I just wanted to be acknowledged for what I did last night because our son was up, and it's just writing those like love notes saying like, hey, I acknowledge that you were up last night, and thank you, and thank you for giving me the rest so I'm fully recharged. And then it's kind of like, how do I help you, and being a team. I think sometimes as new parents, we forget we're a team.
Yeah.
And at least like for Haley and I, like we were always kind of just doing our own thing. And
Sure.
our first project together was our son.
Sure.
And so it was a mess in the beginning. She had her way, I had mine, and it was like, okay, this is not going to work. and now I think we're starting to learn and know our quirks. Like we know our weaknesses, and we will just
Mhm.
press it, right?
Yeah.
We'll just we know this is the button. We're like push it. We're gonna push it and push it.
Yeah.
But now we're like, I mean, I can't speak for her, but for me, I'm like, okay, I know this is the button I can push, but I'm like, I choose not to because we're on a team, we're on the same team. So if she's angry, it's just bad chemistry for the team. Like, how do I not press it, but also, to that point about passive aggressive, right? It's like, okay, she doesn't know what I'm thinking. I'm just gonna tell her. And I'm gonna say, this upsets me, or this makes me sad, and really, put the emotions in. That's what my, psychologist told, like not told, but like recommended is like, start with I statements, right? Instead of, oh, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, and we're both learning to say like, well, I felt this when this happened, and I felt this when that happened, and it's so powerful. Like it's just the way that we're communicating now. It's like we're doing the dance differently is what
Sure.
she said, and I don't think it would have happened if we didn't have a child together. I think we would have just kind of done our own thing, and just kind of bury the stuff and kind of move on with life. But with a kid, you just you need the other partner. Like
it's so hard to do it alone, right? And I just had a story of I'm just gonna leave it very generic, of a person I know, right? Just so that person can't be identified. Single mom. Okay. I don't know how single moms do it. It's crazy, right? So I mean, this person, she had a kid, and 2 weeks later her partner left her. And she doesn't even look back at this point anymore. Basically she was able to raise the kid on her own. I mean, this person's much older now. Her kid's, I think, like 17 or 18 at this point, right? But I mean, as a single mom, I don't know how they do it in a society like this. It's so hard. It's crazy. Like to imagine a single mom with no help has to pay rent, has to pay for daycare. Like, how do they do it? Right. And there are single moms out there, right? It's crazy how they're able to manage without melting down.
I know. And kudos to those moms out there if you're listening. Like, we know. We don't know.
We don't know, right? We can only imagine,
we
right?
only imagine how tough.
Having a partner in, it's a joint project at the end of the day. Right?
100%.
And it's just easier, having that extra hand, right?
It's just no, because like we couldn't have done it. We had each other, but we also had our parents, and if our parents were out of the equation, like I have some friends who are like, it's just the two of us.
I don't have parents in this project. I was hoping, right? But I don't know the real reason, right? At the end of the day, but it's just myself and my wife, right? And we were thinking of a nanny, actually. Which is why I asked you, half an hour ago, do you actually hire a cleaner, right?
Yes.
And when you said yes, I was like, oh, great, right? But no, we were thinking of bringing on a live-in nanny, actually, because we have a spare bedroom. It's just empty, right? No, but my wife actually does not want. No, my wife doesn't want to live in. Does not want a nanny.
Oh, what?
No, my wife does not want a nanny.
Wow.
And I'm not saying no. I'm not blaming her for not wanting a nanny. One, she is scared of an outsider bring COVID into the house.
Oh,
right?
okay, that's
real possibility, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're vaccinated, of course, right? But there's
the
still
baby isn't.
Well, there still is the possibility that we can still catch. I mean, the vaccine's not 100%, right?
That's right.
And if anything, as time goes by, it's less and less effective. But that's another story. But so she didn't want an outsider with the possibility of bringing COVID in the house, because if I go down, geez, the ship sinks, man. And not only that, at the end of the day, I think there's a sense of security, a sense of privacy of having someone in your house all the time. She didn't want that, right? Even though I've pushed.
How was the day-to-day then? Like just to help her, because I mean, for if we're gonna have a second one, like that's
Mhm.
one ask that Haley has asked, and I'm like, yeah, let's build a team around you, right? Because before
Mhm.
I was too cheap. I was like, no, we're not gonna spend this money. But after going through what we went through the first time around, we're like,
Yeah.
no, I'm like, this is money well spent, and I'm like, yeah, anything to make her feel like a queen, because that's what she needs for the next, at least the first 100 days, if not longer.
Yeah.
Because it's just tough.
But it's difficult. You got to think. I think we're in a fortunate enough situation that we can afford to buy help, right?
Yeah.
Average person, though, right?
Yeah.
Who's and I go back. Person who's making $60,000, right?
Yeah.
And if they're paying, two couples have a mortgage, right? And I'm gonna say they're making $60,000 each. They have a mortgage. They got that down payment. They're paying $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
And they're hiring a full-time nanny because both those individuals are going out to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you afford a full-time nanny? And let's just say the nanny's, on average, just to say $30 an hour, right? Full-time, 40 hours a week, 160 hours a month at $30 an hour. That's like $4,000, $4,800 roughly. Like, how do you? I mean, at $60,000, you only bring in $5,000. How do you pay $4,800 to a full-time nanny, right? Like
side hustle,
gig work, and whatnot.
Uber,
right?
we should go to Uber driver.
Or you just don't have a full-time nanny, right? Maybe you have a nanny for like 2 or 3 days a week, right? Whatever's feasible, right?
Yes.
But it like for new parents out there, it's not always an avenue that they can take, right?
No, and we didn't take it for our first one, but I'm just saying, like, for the value that a nanny would bring. Yeah, I don't think full time.
It definitely helps a mom having that extra help, even though and it doesn't need to be full time. It can just be it can even be 4 hours, 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Or, 3 days a week type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Just to have someone come in, clean the dishes for that day, right? Vacuum for that day, right? Do laundry for that day, right? It doesn't need to be whatever, right?
Yeah.
But just to have that extra help can certainly help a mom, right? And that's just my 2 bits, but no nanny at this point.
yeah. No, that's fair. But
what's number 4?
Number 4 is tell her she is beautiful and help her see that in the moments when she is feeling most self-critical and hopeless about her body. Remind her of the times when she achieved goals in the past. Remind her she is a superhero. She literally just moved all her organs around and gained 20 kilograms to give you a child that will be a gift to you for the rest of your life. Help her see past her body image issues and stay focused on the positive goal, one day at a time.
I can go first on this one.
Sure.
I don't think. Well, okay. So as of today, our boy is sick today. She's losing hair from stress for having to deal with the baby right now. That's one point. No, I've what did I say? I said, have you been eating your biotin and your vitamin E? Well, oh God, I feel like a jerk now. Okay. In this pregnancy, my wife didn't gain that much weight. She didn't put on, it says 40 pounds here, right? She put on 10 pounds, 5 kilograms. During her whole pregnancy, right? Granted, our boy was born at 4.25 pounds. Okay, so he wasn't that big. And then after she had the baby, she ended up losing. She basically, her weight was below when she first got pregnant. After,
right.
So she went like a little bit up, all the way down, and then she normalized afterwards. So she didn't put on that much. She, as of today, she's the same, right?
Yeah.
I don't remind her she's a superhero. Maybe I should. Oh no, not maybe. Probably I should. She has sacrificed quite a bit. Or no, not my wife. All moms out there have sacrificed quite a bit, right? To to bear this baby. To give you a gift for the rest of your life, sure. Sure, if you want to call it that. They
are gifts, though.
I've heard I've heard one of my clients call their kids insurance policies,
Yeah.
which is terrible. It's terrible, right?
And the other one is assets, right? It's like, well, you're my retirement fund.
If you want to call it that, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think it really differs from person to person, right?
Right.
You know, I every day I ask my wife if she's okay, right?
Yeah.
And not from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint, right?
Yes.
I think,
Yeah.
you know, every day I ask her, it's like, have you gone crazy yet? Are you know, is this kid making you crazy, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think the physical beauty, I think it makes this a little, I don't know. I think it depends how important the woman thinks physical beauty is, right?
Yes.
No, I've been with my, at that time, girlfriend, now wife, for the last 10 years now.
Right.
How she looks, I accept, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How she looks like in the next 30 years,
Yeah.
I don't care. I accept it, right?
Yeah.
How she is mentally and emotionally at this
Yeah.
point is
Yeah.
much more important to me. I
Yes.
can't say if that's important to her, if maybe, you know,
Yeah.
some moms out there really value the physical beauty, right?
Right.
From a man's perspective, I want to make sure, you know, all her marbles up there are still okay.
Yeah.
Right?
No, 100%.
Right? And that's to me is what's important, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, every person's different.
Yeah, but and I think to this point is, you know, 100%. But I mean, like, where does beauty come from? And I think beauty comes from kind of that self-confidence and
It does.
that,
Yeah.
you know, it lies, you know, it all ties back to, you know, the mental capacity, right? So yeah, maybe she doesn't feel she's beautiful at the moment physically. Then we can talk about kind of, the emotional beauty and the mental beauty and the mental toughness, right? That superhero, the goals. And, you know, again, I wish I read this article kind of when I was a new dad, because, you know, like, Haley, you know, made 5 figures a month in salary at one point, right?
Yeah.
She, you know, had a lot of, you know, people under her business. She, you know, hit her goals. She had a BMW. She had all these things. And, you know, I didn't pull that stuff out. You know, I pulled out other stuff, like, you're not doing this enough. You're not doing that enough. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? You know, I dragged her down, and, you know, I felt terrible.
You were Asian dad before you were even a dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that you're being Asian dad to your partner.
Yeah, and to my son, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you talked about, you know, poop pains. Well, I was that tough dad where, like, you know, he's like 2 months. I'm like, how come you're not walking yet, son?
Yeah.
Like, you know, how come you're not crawling yet? Like, come on, right? We were watching our old videos back, because we have it all on our phone and stuff. And then, you know, we were giggling a little bit, you know, the tonality and how tough I was on my son.
Sure.
Like, you know, come on, Cohen, you can do this. Like, you know, turn around now. And I'm like, oh my goodness, all this pressure. I'm like, you wonder where, you know, kids get pressure, and like, why are they so anxious, you know, by the time they're 5 or 6? It's like, well, you know, hello, the parents are probably, you know, putting this, you know, they just want the best for the kid. You know,
I think that's the intent, right? Yeah, good intentions, but a lot of pressure.
But then the pressure is kind of the side,
Mm-hmm.
you know, side effects of all this. And, you know, again, to this point of moving all her organs, and you can only imagine, like, I never had to move any organs, but no, this baby grows even at, you know, 4 pounds. I think my son was about 7.
Sure.
And, you know, I don't know if your wife did, but my wife, you know, near the end of kind of near term, like, her feet was like all like
the swollen feet thing.
The swollen feet, yeah.
And
she's like, oh my goodness, I don't recognize myself anymore. The stretch marks and all that sort of stuff. And similar, right? Like, I think she's beautiful. I don't tell her that enough times.
I don't tell my wife that at all. I'm a jerk.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I don't think many men do, right? And you know, and I think it's just those little comments. It doesn't have to be beautiful, right? Like, don't fake it, right? Like, don't say it.
No, there are times, like like, there are times she'll put on these red glasses, and I'll basically say, you look really good in these red glasses, but only in these red glasses.
Oh man.
She has these really round glasses. I just
Yeah.
I hate. I'll tell her, it's like,
Yeah.
these look awful.
Yeah. And I'm sure they appreciate the honesty, right? Like I don't think they see through the superficial stuff. And so it's just that honest kind of, again, those comments.
Yeah,
And you know, even though we accept them, like tell them that.
yeah,
Like, oh yeah, like, you know, it's not like, you know, like, you know, not like they just need those reminders, I think. Just like, you know, we need reminders too that we're loved and, you know, we're important, you know, just as we remind our kids
yeah, yeah,
as human beings. I think that's kind of what it is. It's just, you know, you're important in my life and I cherish you. And, you know, how can I make your day beautiful? Right?
yeah.
How can I make
Absolutely.
you know, feel beautiful, right?
Sure.
Or feel positive, you
Yeah.
know, from the mental capacity. So, yeah, that's kind of my part for number 4. And
Sure.
number 5,
Last
final
bullet.
part, and then I'll take lead on this one, and you can wrap up on this, and then we can you know, spend the next 30 talking about okay, I guess in closing, with, I guess, activities or gifts ideas or something like that. So number 5, take the heat. Hormones are crazy, both pre and post birth. She won't seem like herself every day, and sometimes she will say things she wouldn't say if she didn't feel like she was hungover, caffeinated, or on steroids every day. Remember, your job is to be her rock through all of this, so toughen up and keep perspective. When her tongue is sharper than you know her best self intends. Normal will return soon, and you want her to be grateful that you kept it together when she wasn't, not resentful and disappointed that you hijacked her emotions by making her problem yours. Yeah, so for this, guilty as charged. I totally forgot about the hormones and I would blame her. I'm like, why are you saying this? This is so mean. And no consideration for hormones whatsoever as the potential cause.
Yeah.
So yeah, guilty. And yeah, I need to learn to take the heat because I just apply more heat. I add fuel to the fire. And that's probably why we have arguments sometimes is, you know, she's not feeling the best. And I'm not cognizant at all. You know, she'll never bring it up that, you know, she's, you know, she will maybe, like, you know, and, you know, periods and all, but yeah, like they just, you know, there's these things called hormones, and, you know, I got to remind myself every time. It's like, yeah, this time will pass. You know, she's, you know, she has the best interests at heart, and she does, right? Every time we miss each other, like our communication,
Mm-hmm.
it's like we forget that, like, we actually, you know, we are actually putting each other first. But we think that, you know, we're all self-interested and conceited and all that, but we're not.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's where we kind of got to come in as men and kind of be that rock, right? We just gotta, you know, be you know, what is that saying, like cold veins or something like that, like just rock veins or something like that, and just be like, you know, let it pass. You know, it's just not just emotions. It is emotions. Acknowledge the emotions, and that's what I find. Sometimes it's that, like, it's not like she's asking me for all these opinions and stuff, but really what she's really asking is just for me to hold the space and to acknowledge that I'm listening, and she's just having a lot of thoughts going on, and just acknowledge and be like, yes, I hear that a lot of things are going on. I hear this, I hear that, and not to solve the problem for her, because
Yeah.
you know, she is capable. But I always fall into Mr. Fix-It and be like, oh, I got the solution for that, and come up with like 5 items. And she kind of looks at me like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. But I'm like, you just asked me for an opinion. I thought you were asking for how to resolve this.
Sure.
And she's like, no, that's not what I'm asking for. And really, I think what she was asking for is just like, can you just listen to me? Like, I'm like, and I'm listening to you. Like, you know, I can point, you know, recite what you just said. It's like, no, really listen to me. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not really listening to you? And I think what it is just holding space for emotions, and you know, similarly, that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah.
And you know, when she's kind of going off like a firecracker, now I just kind of, you know, I'm like, I'll sit and listen, right? And then so I just don't talk, and she'll just, like, you know, bang 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 bang, you know, trying to make me talk. And I just hold the space. I mean, you know, that's part 1 of it. I think part 2 would be like, you know, acknowledging, you know, but I couldn't, right? Because I'm like, oh, I'm super angry right now, and so I'm like just like this angry face, but I'm like, I'm just listening. And then she's like, oh, this is very, like, she'll tell me after the fact. She's like, actually, Kendall, this is very therapeutic, because normally you'll talk so much, I don't have a chance to talk. But the fact that you just learned to shut up and just like listen, you know, and actually lets me kind of, you know, speak my mind and process stuff. I'm like, great, all right. Step one is just shut up and listen, not look for the solution. So yeah, that's my take on that point. Is just, you know, sometimes, you know, less is more, and in this case, you know, just, you know, breathe and tell, you know, your wife and the mother of your child, it's okay. I'm listening. I'm here for you. And yeah, this too shall pass.
I think this whole hormonal thing, my wife is more stable than I am. No, she's been great, quite frankly. Like, she's been more of the rock than both of us. I mean, I don't have a defense for this. Like, I work 16 hours a day, right? And when I need my sleep, I need my sleep. And, you know, if I get woken up at, you know, if we go to bed at 2 o'clock and I get woken up at 2:30 because, you know, the kid has to eat or poop or whatever, right? You know, she's been more solid than I have been. So kind of kudos to her, right? At the end of the day. But, you know, I think much to what you had to say, like, you know, I haven't needed to take the heat. She has not exploded. No, she's not an explosive person. She will every now and then. Like, I'm gonna say, like, once every 3 years,
Wow.
she might explode, right?
Yeah.
But no, generally my spouse is, you know, I wouldn't call her emotionless, right? She's just very good at putting up with me, you know, in handling, you know, pre-child and post-child, right? No, and we were pretty fortunate. I think, okay, I can't confirm this. I think she handled postpartum very well. I think, right? And to that, I'm going to say we were lucky in the sense that, you know, that we had, you know, good balance on that. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think, you know, I'm pretty thankful for, you know, her being more emotionally stable than I am throughout the last 2.5 months with this kid at this point, right? But, you know, my mom had to do it, your mom had to do it, our wives had to do it, right? Where, you know, they have basically needed to, you know, put in a lot of effort, right? Again, huge toll on their, you know, brains and bodies, to, you know, to raise us, or to raise, you know, our children at the end of the day. You know, it's a real kudos to them, because I'll tell you, Kendall, I had no idea how when we were in the process of having a kid, I basically said it's going to be easy, right? This is not. I mean, I had, up to that point, I had 2 dogs, right, and, you know, raising puppies, so easy, right, and raising puppies, so rewarding, right. And when it came to, you know, let's have a kid, it's like, we're gonna do this, like, you know, I'm gonna raise a human being, right? This is gonna be easy. Oh God, it was not easy. It has not been easy. You know, like, and, you know, like, no, my wife, right, and probably my mom, right, at least, you know, the way in this environment I grew up with, in where, you know, my dad never changed our diapers. That's what my mom said. My dad did not change a single one of our diapers. And, you know, like, my mom, you know, kudos to her for, you know, having to put up 9 years, not 9 years, you know, probably 12 years of diaper changing, right? From my oldest brother being, I don't know, I have no idea when I was poop trained. I think I was probably I think I was poop trained pretty late, like 3 or 4, like probably 3. Not 4, because I know I was going to school, preschool, by 4. I say 2 or 3, but I was a late learner, so I was probably one of those dumb kids. But, you know, I don't think I would be as far, you know, without the life lessons that my mom taught me, right? And granted, you know, I didn't. I'm not taking everything my mom had to teach me, because not everything my mom taught me is right. My mom taught me so many, like, crap stories. One of the biggest ones that, no, I told my wife this. If you go out in the, like, this is one of those, old Chinese wives' tales type of things. If you go out in the rain and your hair gets rained on, if you don't have an umbrella, your hair gets rained on, you will get lice. Okay. I will never tell this story to my kid, right? I told this story to my wife, and my wife would give like the biggest WTF, right? Like, you get like your hair doesn't suddenly get wet and lice doesn't fall out of the sky and suddenly they just appear in your hair, and like, no, that doesn't happen, right? But like, there are good things I learned from my mom. There are terrible things I learned from my mom, right? But I value each and every one of them, right? And I took all the good. Ideally, I think I took most of the good things, and it's become me at this point, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. No, nothing comes to mind right now, but no, those are very ridiculous, but don't know where they come from, but they're interesting. It's like, oh yeah, don't do this.
How influential was your mom in terms of of your personal finance today? Like, how impactful was she?
Like I think it was because of the lack of knowledge of personal finances that inspired me to become a financial planner.
Yeah.
And so it was because, I mean, the story goes, right, and is that my dad took me out. I was 18, I think, at the time, 17, 18.
Sure.
And took me out to lunch with his financial planner at the time. And then I was like, oh, this is cool, right? Like, this guy pays for lunch, and you just talk to clients about the market. And I was interested in the markets at the time, and it's like, oh, it's just you can do this for a living, and it's like a financial planner. So it was always at the back of my mind. And then when my dad, the business kind of slowed down. So of course, I didn't know at the time. But now I do. It's because he became a smaller client because he wasn't a business client anymore.
Sure.
So he actually told my dad to be like, oh, transfer your assets out, and so I took it to TD at the time. But then that was kind of like my warning bell to be like, okay, well, if his assets are not going to be enough and it's probably going to dwindle as he goes into retirement years, then I need to be the financial planner for my family so that they can have a comfortable retirement. And so that was kind of my motivation to be like, okay, I'm going to go into the bank and learn personal finance and learn about mortgages and investments and, CPP, OAS, all that sort of stuff. So that when they do retire, which, they are now, I can take over the finances and kind of plan for them. And it's kind of turned out that way. And now I am their planner, so to speak. Kind of with their property and stuff like that, but it turns out we had more money than I thought they told me. And it came from, I think, and it's nice because I think at that time I was still a baby, right?
Sure.
In terms of, in their minds, like, okay, this guy's going to business school, but what does that really mean?
Sure.
But I think over the years, as I talked to my dad and my mom, and my dad handled most of the finances, so my mom's always been kind of just like, oh, I heard this, good stock, buy banks, from this person she's heard from the from the Chinese radio station.
Sure.
And so that's kind of what I've my influence. So I never had anyone did they give me allowance? I think they did.
I didn't get an allowance.
Yeah, but it was again, I mean, I think the biggest lesson, if I were to kind of think back, I think from my dad, actually not from my mom, but from my dad, he's a very generous person.
Okay.
And so he's big on tithing, to the church and other charities and stuff. And that's one thing that really impressed me, right? Even, when he had little, he would always set aside that 10%.
Sure.
And he would always kind of give. And, when he sold his place, like that's the first thing he talked about. It wasn't like, buying a new thing or for himself. It was like, okay, how do I give back this 10% to the church and other charities? And we're in the process of potentially setting kind of like a giving foundation sort of thing. And that really brought that was like music to my ears. It was just like, this is always in the back of my mind,
you know, to kind of create this kind of giving foundation. And we talked about it too in our wills, kind of like, okay, yeah, we can give it to our parents, but no, what are some causes we're really, you know, Haley and I are really keen on, and that's like mental health is big for us. You know, international kind of, you know, development, and you know, Haley has a big heart for like Cambodia, and things that are going on there. So you know, when I kind of think back, I'm like, yeah, actually my dad has been influential that way, in terms of kind of giving back. But you know, again, Mother's Day, so let's focus on the mom. Yeah, the things I picked up from her was, again, save, couponing. You know, don't always just, you know, buy the first thing that's available. Like, shop around. Like, she would always go to Chinatown, goes to, you know, Crystal Mall, finds the best deal. So I picked that up. It was like, okay, you know, Safeway was always the most expensive to go to a superstore. Like, you know, Safeway is convenient, you got everything, but I was like, oh, to me, I was brought up convenient. There's a price to convenience, so never take the most convenient route. Like, do the.
I was told the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. But like I said, you know, a couple episodes ago, I use Instacart almost every month now.
Yeah.
To basically buy groceries.
Yeah, and to me now, that's where I'm breaking that kind of yeah, that frugality, I guess. Like, for me, I'm like, is it worth it? Especially with gas being like what, $2.16 now a liter.
No, I drive an
Is it worth
EV.
it?
I don't have an excuse.
Yeah,
For
I
me,
know.
it's just time.
But yeah, time, right?
Yeah.
That's key for me too. But it's like, yeah, does it even make sense for me to go out and pick up the pizza or pay the $5 and just have it?
Well, I still pick up my pizza. I still pick up my pizza. I refuse to pay for delivery and tip the guy like $10-15. I'm a huge jack. Like, I got that from my mom. My mom picked up the pizza. I pick up.
Yeah,
the
I
pizza.
picked up the pizza. I mean, I still do, because they, you know, the coupons sometimes require you.
At $225, my bill out rate, I'm gonna go pick up the pizza. I learned that from my mom. I gotta save pennies here. But you know, my mom basically led me to accounting. It's the same thing, kind of like you, right? You know, my mom. No, I was in business school, and I had two choices of career. It's finance or accounting.
Right.
And when I told her marketing and human resources, she shook her head at me and was like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, well, Mom, I can't get into finance. It's like, well, then you're going to go into accounting. And that's what happened. So I have to thank, I have anyone to thank for my career, and you know, the goods and the bads it brings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I will assign that to my mom.
Yeah. No, it's family of origin. It's always it always comes back to that. I mean, psychologists, counselors, they all talk about it, and you wonder why. It's a cliche, right? It's like, oh, tell me about your childhood. But I think a lot of things that happen in our childhood kind of, you know, creates these things, you know, these stories of where, you know, it creates their values, so to speak, and you know, and it's usually what you were missing the most that becomes kind of those core values that are the most important to you.
I think so. I agree with that.
Yeah. And and it's really now kind of like the focus of my, as I kind of create my mission statement and, you know, the type of clients I want to serve. It is my life story, right? It's like, you know, the dad who was missing. Why? Because we thought we didn't have enough money, so dad thought he had to always work. And so, like, my story now is like, no, you don't have to always work, right? You just need to know where the money is going. A, like, have a budget, and then 2, spend within your means, and 3, okay, yes, income is important, but it doesn't mean working 9 to 5, especially now with the internet, with all these side hustles that you can do. Like, okay, like, you know, you don't have to do the 9 to 5, and if you do, like, are you bringing enough value to, you know, is your company paying you for the value that you bring, or you're discounting yourself, which a lot of people are because of the confidence, right? It's like, oh, I don't know if I can ask for more. It's like, of course you can, right? And these are the ways that you can do it. You build a business case to be like, this is how much I'm worth to the company, and, you know, pay me more for it, instead of scrimping peanuts and saving and couponing and all that. Like, do all that too, but on top of it, make sure that you're being paid for what you're worth, especially, and we're living in this, you know, age called the Great Resignation, right? When, you know, like, we're the lowest, I think on the headline, lowest employment rate in the history, if not like in the last 20 years or whatever.
So workers have a lot of power right now to dictate, not just the things about going back to the office, but really work condition, time, and if your job has worked, in working from home, like there's and there was a funny article I think by Harvard Business Review about why managers want employees to go back. It's because of that, I think it was control, or that just it worked better for them.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, it's last 2 years it's shown that you can work, you can manage from a camera. Like, you don't need to see them physically. Yes, there are some benefits, but it doesn't have to be every single day. It could be the core hours, as
Yeah.
articles have mentioned.
Yeah, the hybrid model,
The
basically.
hybrid model, yeah, it's 100%. I think that should be how work is. And yeah, people are more efficient. I mean, just think of the time you save from like commuting, and that
10 hours a week.
yeah. And
Yeah.
now I can like go and like run, spend more, like drop off my son at daycare. Like
At
that
10
is
hours, I walk
good.
my dog for 10 hours, and I get 10 hours of exercise now.
Yeah, which is huge. That's longevity, right?
Yeah.
Like versus being stuck in a car and they'll cut into your lifespan. So so I guess in summary and in ending and in conclusion, what are anything planned for your Mother's Day? Any tips for the husbands and fathers out there?
Plan in advance, right? Quite frankly, I think it has to do with what you said at the very beginning of this call, right?
Yeah.
It sneaks up right on you. Haley didn't even know, like,
Yeah.
Mother's Day was tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just important to plan in advance, right? And not to, I think with Mother's Day is not truly a holiday, right? But it's a day of recognition, right?
Yes.
And it's that one day a year where you can choose to, out of the other 364 days, right,
Mhm.
to pay your respects, right?
Yeah.
Like, mothers have sacrificed so much for, I'm just gonna say you, right? Even your wife has sacrificed a lot for you, right?
Yeah.
To add, your son to your life, right?
Yes.
Like, it's so important to pay your respect that that they were willing to do this for you. There's no reason why you shouldn't there's no reason why you should brush this off, right?
Yes, absolutely.
My final words.
Yeah, and and to all the moms out there, keep up the great work. You are superheroes, like that article mentioned. And you deserve all, like, Mother's Day is every day, right? And shouldn't just be just one day. It's just like a moment, to recognize. But I think the key here is kind of that partnership, that you're not alone. I would say, I will venture to say most husbands want to help, just don't know how. So just gear us in the right direction. Just tell us what to do. And for the husbands out there, right, start to be aware, pick up the little things and learn as you go, and surprise your wives, right? Like, it's sometimes it's those dishes, those bottles that need washing, that piece of garbage on the floor, or that beer bottle that you finished and just tucking it away. Little things like that you think don't matter, it just ends up mattering.
Yeah.
And asking for feedback. I
It's
think
just the little things.
Yeah, it's the little things, but it's the little things that matters the most. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You think you have to buy her a big gift basket and stuff, and Haley always tells me, no, just do this, and I'm like, that's it? It's like, yeah, that means everything to me, right? This small action, the fact that you remember this, like, if I don't have to tell you to do this, like, this will matter more than this big teddy bear gift basket. I mean, those things are fun, and get them too, but really, if the advice I would give is, just small things, right? Like, and for those fathers thinking about, like, breakfast in bed, if they like. I mean, Haley doesn't like it. She's very clean and neat, so she doesn't like the idea of having breakfast in bed. She's like, don't dirty my sheets, don't you dare. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll just make you breakfast.
Serve at the table.
And you can come down, right? And like that article said, even if it's cold, like, it's just the thought that counts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just kind of I told her, I'm like, sleep in tomorrow, and you know, I got you. And again, I always give this cleave it. I'm like, unless our son calls for you, because then I can't control it. Because then he would actually send me like away. It's funny, if he wants mom that morning, he would tell me, Baba, down, right downstairs.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want you. It's like, I'm like, no, mom needs to sleep. I'm here. No, Baba, down, go. And I'm like, okay. And she knows, right? She's listening in there, and so she'll get up and attend and give him a hug. But yeah, there are like, if he wakes up and he's like, it's okay, he's like, oh, hi, Baba, and then he kind of takes me in the room and brings me downstairs, and I always tell Ahelia, like, take it, right?
Yeah.
When he's okay and doesn't need you for that moment, then yeah, I'm hands down, and I do most mornings now. Like, I'm more of a morning person anyway, so
Sure.
so it works out, and she gets to sleep in, and she has her day and stuff. But yeah, like, yeah, putting your wife first, and it's about that. You know, just remember your vows, right? That you've made on the wedding, right? You know, sometimes along the lines of, you know, I'm gonna make you the most, lucky. At least for me, I said you're gonna be the luckiest girl on this planet. You know, you're very important to me. You know, for better, for worse, all that sort of stuff. And you know, we tend to forget. I mean, I can't say we. I tend to forget. And I always be like, oh my goodness, I made this promise. And I was reading my vow, I think, yeah, when we had Cohen, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I said these words. I'm like, holy. I was like, okay, so
you gotta step up. You gotta step up.
You gotta step up. You gotta step up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I made a joke about how my stock was at the all-time low, and then you picked me up, and then it was gonna go up. You were at my wedding.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then everyone was having a laugh, and I was like, oh my goodness, the stock crashed when I became a dad, and she still held on. So I'm like, I want to reward you as the Kennel New stock takes a GameStop kind of meteoric rise. I'm like, we were at the lowest moment, and she was there. So, thank you, to the women in our lives, the moms, the wives. You guys, not guys, girls, you ladies rock. Keep it up. We're here to support 100%.
Well said.
Yeah.
All right, I think that sums it up. Great chat tonight, Kennel.
Yes, and next week, same time.
Next week, same time.
Topic to be announced.
Topic to be announced. We'll get there.
We'll get there. All right.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
We do.